Can you guys all say Team Say on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Hi, I'm Marianne. Welcome to Teen Say. Today I have Sylvia Haydash with us, a clinical social worker. Thank you for being with us again.
Glad to see you.
Yes, you did our show with us. Does 50 Shades of Grey, the movie, influence our teens? Can you tell us a little about your background?
Well, I didn't start off to be a social worker. I started off to be an English teacher. And as a military wife, we had the opportunity to go to Bangkok. And we were just coming off a tour out of Europe, and I wanted to be fluent in a language. So they sent us to Monterey Defense Language Institute for a year, where I learned Thai. And we were sent to Thailand for a year as students of the culture to live among the Thai people and to just study the country itself. And during that time, it was the height of the refugee crisis over in Indochina. So I was able to work with the refugees in the camps there because of the language that I spoke in Thai, and I learned Lao, which is similar to Thai. So working with the refugees in the camps, I worked with a lot of women and children and tried to acculturate them as they were not sure where they were going to go after they had their choice of France, the United States, Australia, and kind of gave them a short history of what they would expect when they came to the United States. And we went back to the United States and we settled in the Washington area and started in the Manassas area. There was a large group of refugees that were being resettled out there because they thought this is a rural area, and most of these people were pre-literate. They couldn't read or write in their own language and thought this would be an ideal place for them. Unfortunately, they put them into townhouses, and we had a couple of children. We had a family whose daughter was killed because she had never seen a car before, and she was running across the street and got killed. Another family started a fire in their townhouse because they had never had indoor type of oven, and they lit a fire in their kitchen and put charcoal on it, and that started a fire in the townhouse. So Manassas decided they really needed to do something, and I was hired to be an executive director of an organization called Caring, and I did 3 years of acculturation with working with women from and families from Southeast Asia, the Lao, the Cambodian, and the Vietnamese, and taught them about life in the United States. And after Caring, I was sent back to Thailand, where I worked with refugees for another 3 years. And then when I came back to the States, I was director of a homeless shelter and a community assistance for people that were indigent. It's called SERVE, and worked there for 3 years, and then went back to school because I felt I really lacked the skill set to work with people on the level that I wanted to. So I got my master's in social work and was immediately hired to go to Vietnam and set up children's programs for the Vietnamese. So when I went to Vietnam, I worked for an NGO, a non-government organization called Holt's Children's Services, and worked under a USAID grant, which allowed me to establish programs. So I set up a home for unwed mothers, because in Vietnam they have no unwed mothers because they certainly don't have sex before they're married, right? And then, which is wrong. And that was the mindset of the powers that be in Vietnam.
Okay.
I also set up a program where I was buying cows and chickens and pigs for single moms, and then also provided the necessities of life for a lot of the unwed mothers with, a lot of women were sending their children out of the country. They were allowing others to adopt them because they couldn't afford to live. The average Vietnamese family at that time lived on $30 a year. And so some of them couldn't even make that kind of money. So That was, and I also
$100
taught
a year.
a year.
Wow.
And I also
What year was
did,
that?
that was back in 1995. And I worked in the orphanages over there and taught social work skills to the workers so that they would understand developmental stages of children, so we could prevent children that were coming to the United States with reactive attachment because they didn't really bond with anybody. They couldn't connect. So I had a multifaceted job over there in Vietnam. And that was when I came back to the States. I worked for a teen group up in Arlington area and then decided to open my own practice. So that's what I'm doing. I've been doing private practice for over 20 years now.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And you won't retire because too many people need you.
No, I really need to. I'm going to be the oldest living social worker. It's time.
But yet you don't, because someone always needs you, and you sometimes even work for free, which is amazing. You do a lot of good in the world. So hopefully that karma thing, that all good does come back to you, because you've done some pretty dynamic things. But for the future medical students out there, for the future psychologists or social workers, or, I mean, what would you say to them? How do they begin such a dynamic career? How do they say, I want to go to Vietnam, I want to change the world? I mean, essentially, you did big, big things. I mean, how do they even imagine doing something like that? You know, I mean, how do they get started?
What I do was an anomaly, and I think it started with making the choice to go to language school with my husband, and that just kind of snowballed into many opportunities over there. I think if you want to be a social worker in the United States, there are many facets of social work, and one is going into there's a bifurcation of our profession. You can go into something where you do policy and community organization, or you can work among the people. And one is through government agencies, child protective services and adult protective services, and giving food stamps and assistance that way. Or you can go out into the community as a community organizer, or after you get your master's and you do over 3,000 hours of supervision, then you can open your own practice. I recommend that you start off with a Bachelor of Social Work. George Mason's got a very good program, and work in the community for a while. It's one of those professions that you spend a lot of time outside of normal office hours. Children that are abused aren't abused between 9 and 5. It's generally in the evening when the family starts to disintegrate. And, I was called out many a night to families' homes when I also had the capability of interpreting for the police department and for any organization in the area that needed, when the Laotians came into our area, and I would have to go out at night to the hospital with them, or I helped deliver 36 babies because they needed an interpreter in the room. So,
how exciting.
But I think, for the person coming out as a social worker at the bachelor's level, there's a lot to do out there, and it's a very rewarding career if you're not stuck on, I need to work 9 to 5 and earn a lot of money, because neither one of those are true.
Right.
But then, as you progress through your work as a social worker, it's the one profession that you have that you can do many different things, and it enhances your career, rather than they're not going to think you're flighty if you move from, say, Section 8 housing to giving out, going to child protective services or going to mental health. There's many, many things that you can do within the field, and all of it's rewarding.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a big decision when they're trying to pick their career at 18 years old and they have no idea. So I'm glad there's a program like HOSA in school where they can hear different professionals like yourself, speak to their classes and tell them what they do and what their road looks like. And of course, every road is different. Your road is very different from other roads, that other clinical social workers have gone through. So I think it's great that during coronavirus time, we're getting to interview these docs to, give everyone all over a chance to hear you all, because you can't go to, a zillion different HOSA classes all over the world. So it's a good opportunity to hear them. So we were saying earlier what you did. It's not just listening to problems. What would you say? So there's various things you could do, like you've done. There's rape victims, there's child abuse victims, there's battered women, there's battered husbands, there's so many various things. There's anxiety, there's depression. So what would you say, how would someone decide that it was their calling?
I think it calls you. I'm not sure you call it. Is really, I mean, your heart has got to be in it. It's not an easy job, and it's not a 9-to-5 job, as I said. So I think that I always believe that you have to work in the field before you go on to open your own practice. I think that young women and men, when they get out of with the bachelor's degree, they go immediately and get their master's degree and think this is it, And I've heard many a person say to me that they didn't want a therapist who's 24 years old with a master's in social work or a clinician tell them how to raise their family when they've never been there. So I think that you really have to taste life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, before you can go out there and open up your own practice and really have an empathic feeling for the people that you're dealing with. I mean, I've lived poor in my lifetime and have been in third world countries where people are poor. And if you have somebody come in to your office and is really, really anxious, you need to assess where they are in their life. And if their basic needs aren't being met, you can't help them with their anxiety until those needs are met. And some people just don't have any concept of what it is to not have enough of anything. So I think there needs to be an awareness of all levels of life and all facets of life before you hang your shingle out. You can learn all you want. I mean, there's many different theories out there about family practice or individual practice and what's going to work. But studies have shown over and over again, it's not the theory that you use for therapy. It's whether or not they connect with you as a person. And if they don't connect, you're not going to get anywhere in their life.
Have you ever had to tell a patient that you think that they would be better off with another clinician because you didn't feel you were helping them, or think there was a click?
I have. I don't think that there's any shame in that. Huh?
Don't they like abandoned?
No, because I think when you go into the store, I always tell them at the first meeting, when you go into a store, you don't buy the first pair of pants you try on a number of them. And I think you need to do that with the therapist. Because if you don't, and you go, oh God, do I have to go see that witch again this week? You're not going to get anywhere, and you're going to be really unhappy. So you have to connect with somebody.
And that's something for people to learn as well, that they can switch. There's nothing wrong with switching. So.
And I don't think you're hurting anybody's feelings, because this is your life and this is your journey, and you shouldn't allow anybody else to tell you what you need to do, because I think we're all very wise people. I don't think a therapist necessarily has all the answers. I think that we can certainly walk with people to help them understand what they want in their life.
True.
We have something called self-determination in our practice, which is what social work is based on. And you allow the person to make their own choices. If I said to you, I think you need to eat a tuna sandwich every day, you'd look at me and say, I'm allergic to tuna, and say, well, you still need to eat that sandwich. And you just lost the whole, the whole game.
Yeah. I think you said one time to somebody, I can't remember what the question was, but I just remember you saying something like, it kind of goes with the saying, if your friends were jumping off the bridge, would you jump off the bridge? But I can't remember what you said, but it was a great example for teens not to let other people kind of decide their fate, and to give them the wrong advice.
Well, I think that we're all, my theory is that we're all very bright in our own self. And if we listen to others and they tell us what to do, who's going to be you? That I think we all are unique in that we all have something that we're supposed to do on this earth. And why would you choose to do something that really doesn't satisfy? There are a lot of people that go into their field that my mother wants a doctor, my mother wants me to be a lawyer, and then they're unhappy for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
You get one shot at life.
It's done every day, unfortunately. It happens to a lot of artists.
Right.
Why don't you go to law school or medical school? Well, my mother said there was no money in acting. So, yeah.
And is money everything? I don't think so. I think it's, a sense of self and self-worth and self-satisfaction is much more important.
Right. The old saying, I guess if you love what you do, then you've never gone a day to work.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Sylvia, for talking to us today and for enlightening us.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
1, 2, 3.